What historical events are so absurd that they would be too strange for a fiction story or a movie? I got one for you. Ex-Nazi and cult leader pedophile Paul Schaefer was so obsessed with having the children of his compound, Colonia Dignidad, love him and only him that he once took all of the children of the compound to a river where he had someone dressed as Santa Claus floating on a raft. He then shot and killed Santa in front of all the children and told them all that Santa's dead. The only holiday we ever need to celebrate here is my birthday. I'm so fascinated by the novelty, the morbidity just passed by me. Kind of like Santa passed by those kids on the river. Edit. Reminds me when I was a brat and threatened my mom, hardworking single mother. I'd throw the Game Boy and Pokemon game my mom had gotten me for Christmas against the wall that she had said was from Santa, and she said, "Don't do that, I spent a lot of money on that." That's when the illusion was shattered. Santa was never real. That's also when the truth started to sink in. My mother loved me so much she'd work to buy something that is not essential and say it was from someone else so that I could believe in the magic for just a little longer. God bless my mother and all the parents giving their all for their children to be happy and healthy. The RMS Carmania. In 1914, just after the outbreak of the First World War, Germany had a cunning idea. They needed to ensure naval superiority in the Atlantic, but there was no way they could manufacture enough new battleships in order to contest what was traditionally Britain's inviolate domain. So, they took the SMS Cat Trafalgar, an 18,700-ton luxury ocean liner, and retrofitted it with two 4.1-inch guns and six 1-pound pom-pom autocannons, and also had one of its funnels removed so that this colossal Frankenstein's monster of a ship would appear, for all intents and purposes, to be a cruiser under the command of the British Merchant Navy. The ruse complete, it would prowl the South Atlantic under false flags. Dressed as a British ship, it could approach the British supply line and at the last minute fly the German colors before wreaking havoc and undermining the until now unimpeachable British Navy. They even renamed it the RMS Carmania. RMS standing for Royal Mail Ship, a type of fast steamer used to carry international post, to complete the illusion and ensure that it would never be recognized as being formerly a German passenger cargo ship, until it was far, far too late. Military historians generally concur that it was a bold but brilliant plan. At a fraction of the time and cost of a new custom-built battleship, the newly christened RMS Carmania should cost the British fleets thousands of lives and millions of tons of lost ships before it could be reliably identified, except for one tiny problem. On the 14th of September 1914, after a fruitless first voyage ending with no sightings of any targets and being forced to refuel empty-handed, the RMS Carmania met its first ever opponent just off the coast of Trinidad. It was the RMS Carmania, a 19,500-ton ocean liner retrofitted with 8 4.7-inch guns and deployed as a cruiser by the real British Merchant Navy. From 4 miles away, the real RMS crew realized that the ship they were looking at was not in fact the ship that they were standing on, and opened fire. It took 2 hours of vicious Age of Sail-style broadsides, but eventually the doppelganger was sunk with the main victor limping away under escort to Brazil for repairs. Bonus facts I discovered while answering comments. Fact 1. Towards the end of the fight, the first ship to arrive was a German ship called the SS Kronprinz Wilhelm. At this point, the British RMS Carmania was barely afloat, holed beneath the waterline and likely to be finished off by a stiff breeze. But the Kronprinz Wilhelm just turned and left without getting involved. Turns out the Kronprinz had been listening to SOS calls from both ships and knew that the RMS Carmania had sunk, but wasn't sure which was which. Rather than investigate and likely get caught by other British ships answering the same calls, they decided it might be a trap and left them to it. Because of this, the Carmania was rescued and went on to sail for another 18 years. Fact 2. The RMS Carmania had a sister ship called the Coronia, and together they were known as the Pretty Sisters. This was publicly known information. The cat Trafalgar was deliberately disguised as a pretty sister based on the designs and appearance. So it's not even as though the cat Trafalgar were deliberately disguised as the Carmenia. It was 50-50 it's that they could have impersonated the Coronia, save for the name painted on the front of the hull. The outcome could have been very different, save for a coin flip between two names. Fact 3. The RNS Carmania had gone to Trinidad because they knew that islands nearby were being used as staging posts for German ships, and the first they encountered was another retrofitted ship that had been sent there to hunt cargo ships. Effectively, the RNS Carmania was a secretly retrofitted cargo ship, hunting another secretly retrofitted cargo ship that was itself secretly hunting cargo ships, but couldn't find any except for the one that wasn't a cargo ship anymore and who knew they were there anyway. So it wasn't a secret anymore. Spy via Spy barely begins to cover it. One of 11 children born to Charles and Maria Sachs, Adolphe was an extremely accident-prone youth who barely made it to adulthood. At 3, he fell 3 floors down, bashing his head on the stone floor at the bottom. He drank a bowl of acidic water, believing it was milk. He swallowed and subsequently passed a large needle. He flew across his father's workshop and was burned badly when a barrel of gunpowder exploded. He fell upon a hot cast iron pan on a stove, burning his side. He frequently slept in a room where varnished furniture was drying, somehow avoiding poisoning and asphyxiation. He was hit in the head with a slate roof tile while walking down the street. He fell in a river and nearly drowned. Then this same child, who some force was failing miserably to live, grew up and had the audacity to invent the saxophone. Wojtek, the soldier bear. He served in the Polish army in World War II, helping his fellow soldiers by carrying heavy crates of ammunition into battle, saving precious time during combat. He had been recruited as a soldier when his division had to board an English ship which didn't allow animals on board. Outraged, the Polish then made him a soldier, and he lived through the war to die of old age in a zoo in 1963. Douglas Bader. RAF Flying Ace. 23 kills, though he had previously lost both his legs in separate flying accidents. He wore a pair of clunky tin legs. He was shot down over France in 1941. The Luftwaffe were so pleased to have captured him, they arranged for the RAF to drop a pair of his legs at a designated time and place, and cleared the sky for the drop to proceed. The RAF did indeed drop the legs as arranged, but since all German fighters and ack-ack had been stood down as arranged, it seemed a waste not to bomb a nearby enemy airfield. Meanwhile, Bader stumping about on his tin legs was a great hit with his Nazi captors. At a great party held by the Luftwaffe in his honor, he drank them under the table, excused himself to a third-floor bathroom, shinned down a drain pipe, and stumped off into the darkness. He was only recaptured by a German spy in the resistance. For the next 4 years, he continually escaped and was recaptured until he was finally sent to Colditz. After the war, there was a great spirit of reconciliation and togetherness between the air forces on both sides. Bader was not convinced. He was invited to address a crowd of assembled, now ex-Luftwaffe pilots, and began his speech with the words, "Seeing so many of you here today, I am struck by the single thought. I didn't kill enough of you bastards.